So I was just looking out my window, and I do this every morning where I go to sit down, and we have this like big window in our living room that sort of gets like a whole view of the neighborhood. And right outside, there's this tree that almost always is silhouetted towards like the sky. And whenever I look at that, I just think like really deep thoughts about how beautiful life could be by looking at like just the specific details that could be presented to me in that sort of like view that I have of how the light comes down and it hits specific leaves in a way that creates varieties of colors that I can view, that I can look at and go, wow, that's incredible. 'Cause it is. Now it's a miracle that I'm able to even see that and participate in that. There's a lot of really cool things that, sometimes we take for granted that I don't know, that I get to see that every day and be appreciative that I have that good stuff.
Your good stuff. It makes me think of poetry.
Yeah, yeah. I love just making random observations and then thinking to myself, oh, that's almost poetic. Like you always like look at very specific things. Like I'm setting like my laptop up on top of my pillows, and I look because I'm using like one of those, those boards you like use like to like pin stuff. Well, there's like a little bit of marks where you could see where I've pinned stuff, and it's like scars on this like little like desk that I've created out of like pillows and puncture boards. And I don't know, puncture boards. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but I don't know. You just see stuff like that every day in your life, and you look at it, and maybe like some people will just look at it as like, oh, that's just what that is. But I'll look at that and just be devoid of thought, like for like a just moment, taking like in like the imagery. Yeah, I've always sort of been like that too. I don't
Taking
know if
in
you
all
can
the
relate.
details too much sometimes, yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I have to take things in, like this weird sort of in the flow zone that I get in, where there are no thoughts, and I just get into this weird Zen state of absorption. Ah, nice. Okay, so how do you want to do this?
I think we're doing it right now. I think I just checked everything. That's it, man. We're going. We're doing it. So what's up? You
All
wanna
right.
you wanna you wanna just get into the things, or I mean, been going on about looking at the sunshine. You got me thinking of a good poem by John Keats called Endymion. It's a good one. Anyways,
Yeah, dude.
something you'll have to peep out.
John Keats.
He's good.
Really
Him,
gotta read more
Percy
of his stuff.
Shelley, and man, I guess I'm blanking, but John Keats and Percy Shelley, they're my main guys. They're good shit. They tell the things how they should. All right, so tell me
Okay.
the things. What's been going on since COVID, basically? Tell us the COVID life and what you've been up to, man.
The COVID life. I remember for like a long time it not sinking in how just drastically impactful phenomena it was, because I'm a homebody naturally, so it was almost like a blip for me for a moment. It was when I saw how stressed out my parents were that I was realizing, oh, this isn't just like some disembodied abstract idea that's affecting the rest of the world. It's actually has a presence in our life that is affecting us. Because it was when uh, my former wife had moved in that I realized, like, oh shit, like this is gonna be a thing that's going to affect people, like not just like separate to me, because we have a sometimes a tendency to look at the news and to go numb to it. Like the 6 or 7 or so school shootings that happened, like I don't know, like a month ago, happening again. You sort of look at it and you go, okay, well, that's away from me. You could distance yourself a little bit, and I think for the longest time I distanced myself from, I guess, interacting with the world. I went to sleep to myself, and it was in that moment I realized just how like bit of a deep like moment that COVID thing was. it's 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 sort of like a I have these moments throughout my life where I do go to sleep like mentally, and I just, like I said earlier, I zone in. I just do things. Like no conceptualization, no thought of grander implications. I just sort of lived my life for a while. And the habits that made up my life around that time sort of detailed that. But yeah, since COVID, I've been trying to, I guess, pick myself up and figure out like what pieces go where and why. In terms of making me who I am. I'm sure everybody's gone on a journey like that, like after feeling isolated, one from like your places of work or the other people in your life, where you sort of have a persona. And if you don't have that persona, and if you're just being yourself in a natural sort of a state, you start to realize things that other people, I guess, can't influence you on. Like there's no nurture there, like influencing the factors that make up who you are. And I realized that those factors, like the work, like the wife, like all of those things sort of culminated in this person who, throughout the majority of their life, has fallen asleep to themselves, doesn't really accurately contribute to their own autonomy and actual wants. Last we talked, like I was talking about like writing and how to get out of the sort of conundrum of not writing and being a writer, meaning that you actually do like get shit down, but you actually write and make rough drafts and finish those rough drafts and they become final drafts and actual works that you can contribute.
So then here's a question. Do you think somebody who like takes notes all on their phone or something, do you think they're a writer? Or does it have to be like pencil, pen meets the paper?
I think that you would be a very good brainstormer if you just wrote notes. Like, like you'd be really good at conceptualizing ideas. But
I think
being a
that's,
writer,
yeah.
go ahead, go right ahead.
No, being a writer, tell me the things. I'm saying,
Being a writer, in my mind, means that if you're conceptualizing these ideas, you are also planning on how to do them, and then you do them. Like that's of course like the verb writing. You can only say you are a writer if you are writing. If you're there's that whole idea of like you dream up ideas and then you make them happen in reality. The writer makes them happen in reality. It's like a principal part of like being a writer is even though you didn't write anything today, that you attempted to write. You actually wrote down words, like stared at the blinking line, said, "Oh, this is shit," and then the next day look at it and go, "Huh, there's some redeemable parts there." Like, can you just keep working and working and working until you have like 20 pages of something that might look good? Then maybe you get like an idea from like a friend who like said something offhand, or you pursue something else for a little while to help like cool your jets on that idea. Like, for example, I, I'm a DM and I run D&D campaigns, and when I get fucking tired of one setting, I move on to like maybe a script I'm writing, and that I get lost in that for a little while. The fun like dynamics of character that I get from something like that versus planning to do something in D&D for my players and giving them that spark of brilliance and that moment of like, ah, yes, this is me acting as my character and enacting a concept and an archetype that's fulfilling to me as a player, that I get to enact these story beats that happen in like all these other like sort of things in popular media and like culture that I'm inspired by the moment. That's like the funnest part about being a DM is that you get to see like the little like moments that your player is enthused or inspired to do like a certain like scene or voice or idea. It's just great,
So you have
especially
like a
when
test arena. So how have you used that when you're writing? Because that's what I would do is if I had basically like this soft test arena where I could like throw out narrative ideas as the DM, then I'd be like, well, I have this idea for my own actual story or something like that, or my own play. Like I know you do several different things. So I mean, does it help you? Can you like set up the arena of the D as the DM, but the arena is actually like the audience of the play or whoever is going to read, you know, the first chapter of the book and see how it lands. And you can gauge that with like this smaller experimental group of your party as the DM.
yes, yes, like there's definitely like ways that you could like sort of test the waters in of itself where if you have an idea.
Uh-oh, your stuff cut out. I don't know what's going on. You went mute.
Uh-oh.
There we go. Now I hear
Hello?
you. Yep. Go
Oh, is
on.
that better?
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
Okay. So say I book and I write like an idea for a character. So I can workshop that by maybe introducing a similar sort of idea or NPC that I get like a general idea of like this taste that I have, this sense of vision for this character, is it fully realized? And would they be perceived as somebody who can has have sympathy and like care for like these very, very, very opinionated, very specific people? If I
Okay.
do that, go ahead.
Okay.
No, interject, interject. I want to see what you have to say.
Ah. All right. I was thinking, it's interesting that you were telling me earlier that, sometimes they'll divert course. And so, like, question is it usually only one person that diverts course from your main story and is like, I want to fucking just kill everybody in this bar or something, like something, or you're just go off and you start following this other person who looks suspicious for no reason. It's like, You have to make it up on the fly. So like, is it usually one person that's doing that, or is it like one person wrangling the whole party, or is it the whole party all at once? And then
Uh,
like and
yeah.
then after that, the second question is like, how do you gauge that too? Because you just wrote this whole narrative. Like if I was like, here's 5 chapters of a book, and you read the first chapter and you were like, this one girl that you had for whatever that you described in this bar, I want to know her entire backstory. And you're just like, but you didn't even finish the first chapter or something like that. You know what I mean? Of the narrative, like as the DM, it's the same thing. So it's like, do you gauge that and then do you go like, okay, I need to go even more into like minute details, or I don't know, in the actual narrative when you're writing the stuff out? I don't know.
Okay. So
Whatever.
there's two schools of thought on this. There are DMs that absolutely believe that there's no way, if you're creating the world, if you're creating the characters, not to put the players on the track, not to railroad them. Because if you're creating the story, like in their mind, you're getting on the train, you're accepting, like, okay, this is a character that I want to create, this is the backstory stuff. Okay, as a DM, I put that in the world to get you interested. There's one player that no matter what I do, the very specific way that he interacts with the world is he has like a very specific concept of his player freedom and what he wants to do that I can usually predict and clock. For instance, he is a character that absolutely has like a specific sort of a want in this situation. He wants revenge. All right, cool. He wants revenge. Great. All right, so he's enacting like this young warrior's like sort of like fantasy, like, oh, the master is slain. Ah, okay, so I'm gonna go and I'm gonna seek vengeance, right? Okay, well, that's something we agreed upon. Like, if I just randomly killed his like master and I he didn't actually agree with that, he didn't think that that was like a necessary backstory component, that would cause a lot of friction, and because that's not the narrative he wants to tell. The DM, you have to collaborate. The other school of thought is that player choice is exactly what you need to do in order to make like a story interesting. That's called the sandbox theory, where essentially you just create the world and the players go around and cause whatever fuckery like possible. So rails, no rails. I believe in rails because you know the type of person I am. I like to know where I'm going and why.
Yeah.
So there's this example of like the dude that wants revenge, you know, his character. I agreed with him. Okay, this is where we're going. You're on the rails. Yes. And like the whole philosophy there is that I'm just giving him the story. I'm creating like all these characters and dynamics that I think would be interesting to pursue. And I watch like how he reacts in game. And if he does something different, I have to adapt. Like, say if I create targets for him, like, okay, like this is like one of the generals that you have to destroy to get information about your main target or whatever, all right? And he goes off to fight that general, but that general's overpowered and might actually humble him. There's a situation in which like we've been going at it for like 4 hours, and like I'm he finally comes to meet the general by himself, not with the main party, and he gets fucking owned. He got so mad at me last session because he said like something along the effect of like, "Well, I didn't know he was that powerful. I thought he was a goon." And I was like, "No, man, no. I've been setting it up this entire time. You can't beat him alone. Like that's why you're with the rest of the party and the
How old is
NPCs. They can.
everybody in the party?
How old? Uh, he just turned 22, I think. Like, it was his birthday the other day.
How old is everybody though?
Uh, the other party member is 23. Yeah, they're a bit younger, so I think that's what you're getting at. Is there's like this.
I don't know about a bit younger. I think that if maybe you're not 20 yet, there's some weird in between phases. It's like, I think if you missed your prom because of COVID, that is the sort of end of the people I kind of identify with, I think. Yeah, or just
There's like
before
this
that,
sort
I
of.
guess is what I should say. Those who didn't, anyways. And then, it sucks for them, but it's fine because, I missed my 21st birthday of that April 2020. Yeah, that was a trip. Hmm.
Get back
Tell me.
just to sort of find like I guess like the footing of what I was saying is that in terms of differentiating like my screenwriter slash book writer or whatever, I haven't decided like what is interesting me more. The difference between those two is that here you have absolute control. Here it's on the whim of your players because they control like what ends up happening. You just create the situation. If I invent the situation that has captured the girl and is in the factory,
Oh, Lord. You're paused up for some reason. Charging.
see that creates like a unique sort of
You
situation. What
paused
does the
up, you
player do?
froze up, and then you're like, if something with a Lord and the lady, like, God dang it, it's pausing up.
Yeah, we good?
Yeah, yeah, I
Is it
see you now. You're moving. I hear you.
right? Did you hear what I said or
No, no, you got to say it again. It sucks.
okay? So if what was I okay? So if a monster captures a girl, right, and that monster is a shapeshifter, and I've set that up that the monster is a shapeshifter and can mimic voices. If the monster goes to a factory and the player like they have like their gun or whatever, and if I have the monster or like whoever like cry out for help, then I create this situation of tension for the player because they don't know if it's the monster or the girl. See, that creates that choice for them. What do they do? Like they could do something completely bonkers, like go after the voice regardless, or they could do something smart and creative. Like that gives them options. Either or creates narrative possibilities, whereas here it's directly defined by my taste, like my sense of control. Here it's like multiple sort of like influences like interconnecting like simultaneously. My mind and the other person's mind sort of interacting and coalescing with the dice deciding ultimately what happens.
Okay,
Fate.
so how would you compare that as the DM and you just said with the dice deciding and everything with when you've actually like written your screenplays? Like talk about that, dude. And then
Because
you
I'm the
actually have them
ultimate say.
performed and you get to see how the audience reacts, just like the players in the game.
So when you write a screenplay, usually at a certain point, I know that I do this because I get attached pretty easily to what I create and what I do. I'll get somebody else's perspective who isn't attached, somebody like you, or maybe I don't know, like one of like the other like people that I know that are writers, and I get their perspective, as like as specific as possible, and I get like an overall medium between their responses. So like an audience reaction, like maybe like for instance, when I did my play and I saw that some jokes weren't landing versus others landing, you realize that there's a certain audience for some things. Like there's a certain audience for people that like are just there to see their kid perform. And there's people that genuinely want to see the art. There's far more people like in this sort of demographic of, oh, my kid's here, I'm going to see a play, versus like the people like the teachers or maybe like a few friends that I've invited, maybe like people that know me and know like
Okay, yeah.
what I do like as a writer or an artist and are interested in seeing like the final product. You have like maybe these people laughing at their kid or like something that they did that makes them think of like another time that they did something like that. The relatability factor comes in. And then you have the people maybe like sort of that might find the situations that I put the characters in funny or like tension inducing or whatever. And I'll basically ask them, like, what did you think? What parts feel? And depending on like what they say, I might edit certain things so the setup feeds the payoff. Get what I say when I say that?
No, I'm totally with you. I wonder like how much of the audience is it like only a few artists in the audience, or is it like 50-50, or is it like 90% of the people are just there to see their kid? Like talk more about what you did. Do you do and the stuff? Like explain how you set it up and where it was set up and all the things, bro.
Okay. So I was I was invited to come back and write and direct a play by my old school. My old school is a charter school, so that basically means that you're occasionally going back to be homeschooled. Like you're not in public school. To explain the charter school system a little bit more, it's like the college system where you go only twice a week and you're like getting like your lessons or whatever and you're actually interacting with people, because that's like a common misconception people have about homeschoolers is that they're unsocialized, sheltered, like sort of people that come out of the light of day every other like week on a blue moon, you know. And they're not wrong about that. There were definitely some kids that were kind of odd, and you meet like people that maybe like don't have like social skills developed yet, or maybe like sort of struggling to find out who they are. And most of them are like conservative, like on this end. So I had that working against me too, that I was working with a very specific audience. That was part of the reason some of my writer friends were a bit weirded out, is that the play that I wrote was very dark and kind of morbid in places. And one of my writer friends was like, "You sure that the audience is gonna actually be receptive to like a woman like offhandedly saying, like she got pregnant accidentally?"
Ah, you're pushing the
Like,
envelope there, eh?
I mean, granted, nobody approached me before or after saying that's inappropriate. You can't do that.
How many people read the thing, do you think, before like you wrote
Um,
something and then how
the
many people read it?
the co-director, both principals, Vice and Maine, a few teachers that were curious, and nobody said anything. They just said like, "Hey, we're
Then
playing."
it must not matter. I mean,
Oh, that I think that was just my friend's worry for me, is that it wouldn't come through and that it was too dark. I think maybe the content hit a nerve with him. Sometimes that does happen where you show something to like a writer friend, and as a writer you try to capture truth. And when he read it, he said he was viscerally uncomfortable with what I wrote. Like something about the alcoholism and the abuse.
Okay, hold on. You're funny. How old are the kids in this play?
Um, 18 to 20.
Oh, okay, so they're not kids, they're like getting into college.
Yeah. I mean, some of them are younger,
But
like the
they're in the
youngest being
charter
16,
school?
17. Oh,
That's
okay. I
what
thought you
I'm
meant
right,
the actors. I thought you meant
right.
characters. Sorry, because the characters are slightly older than the kids. Okay.
No,
Um,
how old are the actors in the play that you wrote and directed?
high school age, so like 14 up. Like some of them are 16, 17.
Yeah, okay, high school. That's fair enough. I think our show put on some pretty crazy plays during my time in high school. I feel like it's not a You wrote and directed it though. And so how long did it show and go on with what you're saying and how they chose you and you went back?
So I was working with somebody who I'd worked with before and I'd acted in some of her plays. And she asked me, because she knew that I wrote, hey, I was hoping to get a former alumni involved, and you said that you wrote. You write me maybe a mystery play or something of that sort. And I was like, okay, I could do that. And I had this idea about like a sort of Shakespearean sort of play that would take out place in modern day of a king, but like a tyrant, sort of favoring one son over the other, and the dynamic between the two sons would make up the story. I ended up changing that to daughters because I had an idea that sort of pricked at me. Is the unique relationship that I dynamic of threes that played out between my grandmother and my sister and I, in which I was more favored. I was more considered like the golden child. My sister was more criticized. That created a dynamic of tension between us whenever she was around. That became the grounds of the story, is that sort of feeling of we were close once, but there's tension between us now, between the main sister, Barbara, and her younger sister, Joni, who's trying to get her father's approval. Father dies. Joni, like the black sheep, thinks it was Barbara because she's apparently power hungry, and that's the fight throughout the play and trying to unresolve their issues and move on from like this sort of abusive figure. So I pitched that. The director really liked it. She said that it had a lot of potential. Fortunately, COVID happened and we weren't able to do that. But she called me back again, and I had rewritten the play by that point because I like purifying things a little bit more. And it just became better in my mind, less bogged down by like the initial like sort of rough draft period. Fortunately, she told me to write a little bit more characters so that everybody could get a part. What that does is that each character gets a little bit more time. So when you have 12 characters that have like 30 minutes of content, it sort of bloats out the play. So that means like a lot of the actors have a lot of lines to learn. And there were still like kids that were learning lines like 2 or 3 days before like the play premiered. So you
That's
have like
crazy.
there was this one kid that was like so goddamn goated that he memorized the whole play and would like occasionally would be like, "That's your line. That's you have to say that exactly at this point, right?" And the other director, my co-director, said that kids are gonna have to improvise like the lines. This kid was so on book that he just kept the rhythm of the play going. Like if one character forgot their line, he would say it, or like if an action was supposed to be taken by another character, he would do it if they weren't doing it to like keep the
It's
rhythm of the
crazy.
play going. So that kid pretty much saved like the pacing of the play just by like introducing himself or like pushing like other things to happen that needed to happen in order for the beats to actually work. So just a prime example of how like a hardworking actor could pretty much save certain scenes from like dripping or falling apart.
And he would remind him
It's
in the middle of the actual show.
like he wouldn't say line. He would say like he would maybe like push them or like come on, it's you. We have to go over here. Or like he would do it in character and like get irritated with them like come on, let's go.
In
And
character? That's crazy. How old was this kid? He remembered the whole play. He memorized it. Wow.
he is like 16, 17. Like he just recently graduated.
That's wild. What a monster. And
Yeah.
what about that other play that I went to? It was like several different scenes. It was like an anthology or something. You were one of the characters. You were like an alter ego or something.
Oh, those
Where was that
you
at?
audience.
Say all the things.
I had played the half of Hamlet that wanted to kill himself, that wanted to do dark and evil deeds. So the way that the director had set it up, there was lighter Hamlet, like thinking about bearing this woes and sorrows of life and making sure that he did his moral imperative. And then I was the darker Hamlet, eventually beats him. Like we just ended up developing this idea that the darker Hamlet like sort of wins out, and that's the Hamlet that you see going forwards. Like it's this like anthology piece of like an act and a few scenes from Hamlet, and the scenes that we had chosen were, of course, like to be or not to be, but it separated the lines like to make it seem like it's a dialogue between two Hamlets.
Oh, okay.
It's like a
I'm with it.
sword fight,
Okay, so you took the
but
actual lines from the play and you made it into your own like little workshop, improvised-esque type of thing, or you only worked with the lines from Shakespeare.
mhm,
You only worked with the Shakespeare lines, and then you chopped them up.
yeah.
And what theater was this at? And say all the things and how you got there, and tell like how you got involved and how you were networked into it and whatnot. What theater was it?
It was my high school theater, the same one that asked me to come back and write something. And this was a good 3 years, 3 years from like when I had asked. No, not 3 years. It was very early on in my high school years. Like that was when like I was during my junior year. Junior year, I remember that. Okay, so the theater program back then was smaller. So my director, the one that did did like the Shakespeare stuff, it was basically like had accosted me for like a different project. Uh, her lead had left, and she was basically asking every male like the right like sort of high school age, hey, can you be in this play, please, please, please? And she went up to me because like my sister had acted in plays before, and she went up to me randomly and said, hey, you'd be really good for this part. And I'd never acted before, so I was like, um what makes you say that? Like, and she's like, you're a male boy, please help me. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll play this part. Because you know me, I'm incredibly suggestible. If someone like remotely comments on like something that I could do, so I did it, and I crashed a few places. Like I forgot my lines, or like there was like a scene that maybe didn't feel quite right. But then she like invited me back, and I thought, well, okay, you know, like this acting thing isn't that bad, and you know, I get to meet people, so let me just get along for like this sort of process or whatever. How do you become good at this, right? Because I'm seeking self-validation and I'm seeking mastery, but I don't know what yet. Like this is before writing. This is before like I found like any confidence in myself because of school stuff that we can get into later. So here I am. I'm auditioning for this Shakespeare festival, and I feel like this stirring, like when you are good at something, you get like this sense of power, and I felt myself just sort of shift, you know, as I was reading the lines. Like, okay, I get what this means, like, but I don't know what this means. Let me ask. That's what that means. Okay, I have an experience that exactly correlates to that. Like I'm doing what I've been doing all my life and like relating my experience to somebody else. It's just I found the setting in which you could do that and do that well. And it's like this switch happened where I realized that there was a talent that I had that could correlate to something. So I auditioned. Uh, like 2 days later, 2 days of waiting, I got the call, and she said, "How would you like to be Hamlet?" And I had this like moment where I was silent because I was not processing what she was asking, and I realized, oh, she's asking me to be a lead. But what do I do? Like, I actually earned this. It wasn't just something she gave to me. Wow, that's really cool. It's like a moment of like validation, like I'm discovering that there's a part of myself that can actually do something like this. So I got the part, and the more that I acted, the more that I actually practiced, the more I realized how much I loved it because I got to use my body. I wasn't like sitting at a fucking desk reading all day or like interacting like with something that I wasn't quite good at, you know, in terms of just zoning in and pretending that I'm real. Again, like little nuances that I've done all my life, but I didn't know was something that connected to this very specific thing that involves those skills that I've been doing. So yeah, that's how I got involved in theater. It sort of transformed me into somebody that's confident in like these areas where I didn't have that before. I was sort of a nowhere man, no clear skills, just sort of average Joe going about life trying to keep his head low because of a sense of humility that came from doubting myself.
And so, what have you liked better, directing or acting?
I'd say my first love was acting, and acted again. I think that's all I would do. But nowadays, I what I really enjoyed about directing is you get to interact with actors and sort of figure out like what cues to communicate to them, which I also love. I love public speaking. I love oratory practices because it sort of flexes that ability to poetically sort of put a point, but to put a point in a way that only you can. Like express ideas that you very clearly sort of like craft or influence somebody else with. I don't think that that's something you can inherently do just with words alone because everybody else has their own journey. But as a director and as an actor, you're as an actor you agree to be influenced by the director. There's some kids that won't be influenced no matter what you do, and they're just in their shells, but there are other kids that have this like openness about them that if you give them like specific little details, like the lead that in my play, she was really struggling conveying the anxiety of the character, like the sense of perfectionism. And I said to her, one thing you can do is to fidget with your hair, like fidget like with the way that you move. Like when you sit down in a sense that you have like one of those like boards behind you that you're always sitting stiff and uncomfortable. Shift your legs a little bit, like specific things like that that contributed to like creating a body language that would tell the audience everything that they would need to know about this character and how she feels around her family. And you people like that versus people who are refusing to learn the accent like 2 weeks, not refusing to do an accent since the beginning of the production. Like there was this one girl, like I tried so damn hard to get her to do it. Like I said, please, it would make me happy if you did it. And she was like, you're gonna remain unhappy then because I'm not fucking learning the accent.
So then, since you've done both too in the acting and the directing, for the writer portion of you, what was more insightful, being the director or being the actor in acting? What
Being the
helped
director.
you? Why? Why did being a director help you with writing? How?
Because being the director, you consciously sort of have to develop the idea of the story that you want to tell. You have to know everything. What's the set gonna look like? What are the actors gonna be wearing? How are they going to be acting? Like what how do I frame or block this scene in a way that the audience feels the story even if they don't know it intrinsically yet, if they don't understand or can articulate it. And connecting that to writing, which is sort of about just planning for the beats that happen when they do. Why? Like why does this act one scene happen so that this act two reveal can sort of connect to that, make it feel like you're not just beating the audience with a stick, but with useless information that's just randomly coming up. Everything that you pay off has to be set up, vice versa, or else it doesn't have any impact. Like as a director, you have to look at those setup moments. There was this one scene where like a character is saying, like I don't participate in my art anymore. I don't dance anymore. And my life is sort of falling apart because my mom's an alcoholic. I'm disconnected from the things that I care about. And my therapist is saying blah, 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 blah. And she talks about how she doesn't dance anymore. Okay. So we set that up. One of the characters, a therapist, knows this. It's her therapist, and they talk about it at certain points in the play. And at a certain point, I play a track, like a musical track, and there was going to be this sort of beautiful sort of scene where this character, after learning of like a serious sacrifice that her sister had made, like sort of realizes to herself, like I wasn't the reason my sister died. Like I can unburden that about myself. And the therapist plays the track, and it's this sort of playful sort of a moment where he invites her to dance, and they dance. That could only work emotionally if I talk about like the beats before, or if I make the actor portray it in a way that it's a burden, that she's not able to do the thing that she loves. Now that she's able to do the thing that she loves, she's gone through a character arc.
So it helps you, yeah. So I see it as like helping you conceptualize a scene from start to finish. Since you're directing each single portion, you can line up those elements. Yeah, I feel it. I feel like how I kind of conceptualize a lesson. You have like a vague idea of how they're going to come at it and with what amount of attention they're really going to give it. Same way, there's probably going to be some who don't remember all their lines type shit. So, yeah, dude. What else? What else? What else have you been on? What other things did you accomplish from like, I don't know, since high school till now? What have you been up to?
High school till now. Well, 3 years of college for a little while until I burnt out. I got married and I got divorced. You know,
Talk
like
about the college and the burning out.
okay. Um, it was this just combination of influences that, like one, going to college in of itself wasn't something that I felt an initial pull towards. Like I talked about, like falling asleep to myself and not believing that I am worthy to do those things, or not able to like put in the hard work to do it. And my parents at the time were really gung ho about making sure I do all the things that provide security because their own anxieties sort of came across. So 18, 19, they said go to college, get a job, or go to the military. Those are your options. Those are the things you can do that will help you live a good life. We want you to do that. So I did it, and I did it for the longest time, completely like full tilt, while trying to be a partner romantically and somebody who pursues creative stuff and writing and acting and directing. Like I'd done 6 courses one semester, just completely and utterly like miserable the entire time. And so, like, I, during that time, I had made the dean's list, which was like a huge shock to me because I had just been coping. Somehow I'd gotten like A's in like 5 courses, and like there was like one I got like a B or like a C, but
Remember, yeah.
it was super bizarre looking at that, going, I didn't try for that, and I got it. But continuing on with this whole college experience, I just felt myself being like, I don't know, grinded in to like this routine that I was starting to hate a little bit because again, I was working, I was committed in a relationship, and I'm doing all this creative stuff on top of school. And at a certain point, you burn the candles at all ends, and you start to like wither away, like mentally, in each space that you're in. So I wasn't a present partner, I wasn't a present student, and I was doing the bare minimum at work. It was a lot. It sort of consumed me for a long, long time until finally I'm sitting through this biology class, and biology advanced course, by the way. So she's going into the exact specifics, droning on about like skeletal systems, and I turn off my camera and I just walk away. I don't come back, and I forget that it's on, and I realize she's still talking, and I'm like, fuck. She's still talking. I'm gonna fucking quit this class. Like
And
it
you
was a
quit it?
nightmare. Yeah, I did. I fucking quit
I love
biology.
it. Said, fuck this
Like,
advanced biology. I don't give a fuck about this shit.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, dude.
Okay.
Um, fuck, there was a period where I was taking a statistics class, and I, I'm for the viewers at home, I'm shit at math. Like, I absolutely did not learn my multiplication tables when we were learning them. I was wondering why. Apparently, you had to take them for like other more advanced
Right.
math,
Yeah.
and I didn't know there was a fucking sequel to like a more like math and math on top of math and math the return. So I just kept going to this class being so utterly devoid of knowledge and like actual grounding and like the looking over people's papers and like copying it as my own sort of a deal. Like and with their permission, of course, with their permission. I'm not like just, you know. So
Was the answers even right?
yeah, for the most
You
part.
meet the good people? That's right. Yeah, that's how you have to do it sometimes.
Anyways, dude, I didn't even shown up for the final test of that. Like I was that confident I was gonna fail because I hadn't periodically shown up every other day, and I got like an email from my professor saying like, "Where you been? What's going on? Are you okay?"
He
And I
actually
was like,
cares.
like I just like said, uh, no, I'm not doing okay. I don't think I'm gonna show up to like the final because I don't have like any confidence in my ability because I haven't been showing up. It was like, all right, you're probably gonna fail if you do that. Are you sure? And I didn't respond back. Like I was that tired, man.
So, and how many semesters in was this? What year and stuff? Oh, shoot. Think you froze up again. Let's see.
I think I finally burnt out 2021
Tw
in the spring semester.
You froze up. So you burnt out 2021, and then when was this? When was this bio class?
That was in 2021. That was like the semester I
Same as the
started.
stats class? Same semester?
Yeah,
Yeah.
uh,
And so then what
yeah.
other courses were you taking that last semester? So bio, stats,
Um, classical literature. So like I was reading like a bunch of Beowulf and like the
nice.
Canterbury Tales and like very specific stuff like that. Where uh, hell, what the hell else was I reading? Uh,
King Arthur shit, what else?
yeah, yeah. Um, and I was taking another advanced like writing course. I think I just oh yeah, philosophy class, philosophy. Just I don't know, man. I don't know. Something about like the biology course just made me like keel over and die a little bit inside. Like
Why?
it
Why?
was
Go
interesting.
into it. Was it her
It,
voice? Was it the course
no,
that you were just like, why did I even put this in my lineup? Like, how did I fucking just flog myself on the back with this class? Like, what was it? What
well,
made you fucking quit?
I okay, so it's not a knock on her. It's just the details
But it is. Go on.
and
She sucked at
the way
lecturing.
that some people lecture that yeah, no, you know what I'm talking about. Like, you absolutely know.
Not a knock on her, but the way that some people lecture, you just
I
there's like this piercing, like a grenade just went off in your ear, and you're like, I can't even sit further back into the corner anymore. Everywhere I sit, the acoustics are like just like wake up in a daze after I've been trying to take fucking notes. Your voice is just impossible. What?
is the light weird
Yeah,
on
you
your
gotta
end?
lean out of the thing. You gotta back up more if you don't want it to keep adjusting or something. You gotta back everything up.
Is that
But yeah, I know there was some lectures like that. That's much better.
I don't
So
know.
you
I just
escaped. You escaped 2021. The beginning or the end?
uh the beginning, just it was the spring semester, and I remember I just had like a bunch of allergies, and I was staring at the screen at a certain point, just beyond glazed and unable to concentrate on what she was saying. I tried so goddamn hard to write notes, but my notes were so illegible that every time I reread them, I just felt like blowing my brains out because it didn't tell me fucking anything about what she was asking in these very detailed worksheets that she was giving us that I had to print out of my shitty fucking printer that wouldn't fucking print in its entirety. Yeah, I was fucking tired. It was a lot. Put that on top of like four other courses that I wanted to take, and it just drained me in its entirety. So like I think that it was a combination of the absurd amount of detail, the obstacles in my way to do my work, and my attentional issues sort of combining for like this cocktail of like, why the fuck am I here? Like, I'm not doing anything productive. Maybe I should just quit college for a while. And I did.
Do you feel like this feeling you're describing when you were in college, was that exactly the same as your time through high school? And if not, how is it different or what?
Okay. So, yes, it definitely is where you get this feeling of being out of your depth for a large majority of the class, and moments where you think you get it and you have hope, and then like a curveball is thrown your way when, I don't know, you take a quiz or a test and it comes back with an objective grade of how well you did, right?
Yeah, which is like a 30% or a
Yeah.
54%. And you're like, oh, this is the first quiz, not even a test of the semester.
Uh, I'm in
All right, I'm
fact a piece of shit.
strapped in. Yeah, like you have my full fucking focus now. Suddenly, I'm not in summer mode. Like, this isn't fucking fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember.
Um, yeah, it was directly like that feeling of being in third grade and told that I'm reading too slow or wrong, or that I need to correct myself in some way to actually be productive in this classroom. You know, it almost never was personal on the teacher's end. They were like always sort of just trying to nudge me in the right direction, but as I guess like going back to that sort of feeling of being in third grade and not quite being up to speed like everybody else, it was like that, but amplified because I thought I was good at this shit. Now, you know, like I thought I'd become good at this shit. I made the dean's list for Christ's sake. Like I did something. I actually had like a good effect like on myself, by the fact that I was working so hard. You know, like you have like all these other sort of a confluence of other events in my life in which uh, at work we have to work harder because of certain circumstances. Okay, you have to be faster, you have to be on your shit, you have to be extra like aware of like the cleaning like sort of schedules that you have to keep to by a certain time. um, Relationship shit comes up and you start to even question if like that's even right, and you push all that down because that is not near somehow not nearly the most important thing in your life, even though it should be, because you're doing all of this shit like school, work. That's a lot already. You throw a fucking relationship into that, like it, no, no, it won't be productive. It won't be meaningful. It won't help you in your life, especially if the relationship itself is stunted because you got together when you were 17.
So
Like
what
think
sense?
about that for a moment. Like think about how just how hard it is to pull yourself out of your states of immaturity while you're with a person that's also in that state of immaturity, and you sort of exacerbate your guys' weaknesses about each other.
So since leaving college and then getting divorced and like officially or what? Or what were you saying?
So
What day? Like how close? Is it official or what?
Monday, we're officially like filing paperwork.
All right.
Like
And
it,
so and this is Saturday, so that's crazy. All right. So
yeah.
then so then since leaving school and then now this coming up Monday, basically how have you tried or what are you doing to come back into realignment with Gabriel and actually like not sleeping on Gabriel?
Well, I guess I've found basic strengths that I have that I can take like hold of and accept in humility that my flaws and the things that make me me make up something larger than just my worth because of the strengths, because of the flaws. That worth itself is something that you could separate from like the idea that oh this strength isn't something that is marketable or something that I can invest into. And I know I'm talking a lot of jargon and nonsense, but I guess what really truly helped me align myself and find out, you know, like what I want was the divorce itself. Like the idea of this isn't working, we need to stop, and we both need to focus on ourselves. And it's that sort of focusing on myself and what I actually want that made me realize I'm not giving myself enough credit for what I've already done.
Mm.
You know, I've done a lot for myself that I was not giving myself any credence for or any respect. Like there was no like sense of reverence for myself because if you're asleep 24/7 to yourself and you're just habituating life and the way that you could live it safely, you're not actually actively participating in life because life is chaotic, life is random, life is, you know, like sitting through like a biology lecture because you think you need it is not life. It's the most, it's the highest of ironies that I'm learning about the nervous system while I'm staring at a screen losing my nervous system.
I really like this because I wanna like go over it again because I think it's a poignant moment that I for sure identify with. And so like what I dealt with, you know, is like, am I even allowed to think so far against the grain, if you will? And it's like you're saying, you're sitting there taking this class and you're like, at what level do I really need this at all? And then you're like, well, but I have to do it to jump through these hoops for this reason. And it's like, okay, but am I allowed to say that I don't want to do that? And then will I not get burned at the stake or become like some homeless nobody living in a box like Squidward or something? Like just I don't know. It's difficult. And so when you're like I'm just staring blank into the screen, wondering why I'm taking this biology class, I'm also like, man, why am I jumping through all these hoops? And then do I also get to say no? And then what happens when I do? It's like, oh, like I can stop like flogging myself. Like seriously, I don't know how to describe it. It's nice. So like, how did you rationalize yourself through that? How did you tell yourself like it's okay, you can actually drop this class and you can stop feeling guilty or something about it? Or did you not even have that thought? Were you just like, what?
No, that it was all instinctual. Like I had no rationale. It was just exhaustion. It's like that point in when
Exhaustion.
you're doing something where any life you had, any attention, any sense of like you belong there just starts to dissolve and you're not even aware it's dissolving until you're in bed and you're sleeping for like a day or two. I remember that. I remember not showing up any of my classes and just laying down in bed while I don't know, my wife like sat on the bed next to me doing whatever she does in the day and just like zoning out, falling asleep, being on my phone occasionally, but that's it. That's what like I think like a lot of depression looks like for some people is just you sort of like sink in like a certain habit and that habit just becomes the inactivity of not doing anything because doing things has this unconscious sort of stressor of I'm doing something I don't like and that kills me a little bit inside. But how I got out of that, how I got out of that sort of feeling, I only rationalized to myself afterwards. Like all this I'm explaining to you is a rationalization of like that very sort of weird unconscious feeling that was coming to the surface of this isn't me. This isn't what I want. This isn't who I want to be. Um, because it's still connected to this idea of autonomy. And I didn't have that sense being in college, being in a relationship. I didn't have it. Like, they were both oppressive in their own ways.
I definitely know what you mean with the whole oppressiveness. It feels like it robs you of any like mental bandwidth. Sucks. Sucks. Cool. So let's move into the more fun stuff, like the former president basically getting assassinated and whatnot. Isn't that interesting stuff? Or I don't know.
Yeah.
You want to go current events? I don't know. I'm just changing tracks, but yeah,
No,
it was
I get
difficult
you.
to get out of school. But then like now all these other things are happening, and once you get out and you're out and I'm out, and it's like you get you get that bandwidth back to be able to like have awareness of what's going on in the world. And then you see some crazy pandemic occur, and then you see like wars start, and you know, they're trying to murder the former president like month back to back months. They're like, fuck, everybody we hire is like bottom of the barrel. We're not going to spend any more money.
Yeah,
Find a
yeah.
better patsy to make the shot or something.
Well, what I find particularly like interesting about the way that you like sort of phrase that of okay, let's move on. Let's move on. Maybe fun stuff over here is that I think that a lot of this stuff is only like viewed as like okay, like this is the wild stuff that's going on now is because we can distance ourselves and like objectify it, right? Like, oh, okay, like the former president was almost murdered by like
Mhm.
somebody like who is like a patsy, yeah?
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, I
that's the word you
mean, I
used,
think yeah, that's all the only person you would want to use.
right? Like somebody disposable, like a pawn.
Right.
What you could take away from that is that that's like a subject of like I don't know irony in today's like sort of media of like hyperconnectivity and so on versus like if that happened maybe like I don't know in the 80s like to somebody like Reagan, like that was treated like a little bit more like I don't know, reverence, if that makes any sense, because it's just you had the media there versus the media now with our meme culture and like the way that we view things like that. That was literally a meme. I remember the first time like you got hit, that there is
Yeah,
that like shot everywhere, right?
exactly. And it took like zero seconds for that to occur. It
My
took like
friend
0 seconds for
heard
it to
about
go
this.
from
My
like
friend,
real to
but
memed.
my friend heard about the assassination through 4chan. Like that's how like
Yeah.
ingrained, like a lot of these like shit posters are is that they'll look at like the news being fed in and then they'll instantly make something out of it.
Yeah, I mean, the way I heard about it is I think I was scrolling videos and I saw some headlines that were like Trump assassination or attempt at rally or something like that. I'm like, oh Jesus, with all the other headlines or whatnot. And I didn't click on it. I found the video I was looking for, and then I was scrolling through shorts like the very same day. And it's like the algorithm is just getting flooded with all these videos of like people in their phones and shit and whatnot. And I don't know if it was just mine or whatever. And I'm like, what the fuck? And so I go back and I find those videos of like what they're talking about, or I don't know, like Russell Brand or some shit. And then I'm just
Yeah,
like, crazy
yeah,
simulation shit. And
naturally.
you can see him just pop, pop, pop. And it's like, he's like turning his head and I remember like that day it occurred. It was a trip. There was a bunch of other stuff going on that day. It's like, but yeah, dude,
Imagine how
that
keyed
was
up he's gonna be
crazy.
now.
Huh?
Like imagine how keyed up he's gonna be now. Like whenever he's at a rally, like whenever he sees somebody doing something even remotely sketchy, he's gonna what? Like you know how panicked he'd be if he just remotely saw like glints of light or something like that because he got shot in the ear, man. Like
I
that
would be, I don't know.
that
I'm
has to
not gonna
shake you like a
pretend
little
like I
bit.
wouldn't be scared. I would be nervous because I mean they've tried it like twice now. It's a trip. They keep it's so flagrant. It's really funny. Like,
Yeah.
have you heard about the second one too, or something like that? I haven't even really looked into it. Like, honestly, I've just heard about it the same way, like through osmosis that I'm telling you, and I'm like, it's just gonna be something else. It's so fucking crazy to even try and look into. And He's alive, like go figure. Like that's just crazy in and of itself. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I same. Like I really don't know much. I don't really follow like much of the news. So like it's like super interesting to sort of see it like from the perspectives of other people, like learning the news and who are actually tuned in to their very specific like sect of like news. Like they're like the Fox News people sort of talking about like how much of a heresy it is, and like in uh, the other like sort of sect of like the ABC people talking about like, oh, like this President Biden said this, and like Kamala Harris said this, like it's it's fun sometimes like seeing like the people that absorb that content like sort of being the way that they are and observing them. That's what I find interesting, the human component of that. I know that you could do that if you actually watch the news. That's a kind of a part of the process is like seeing people's first responses to like these like very like heightened scenarios, like, oh, a presidential assassination, oh
Yeah.
dear, what do we do?
Yeah. It's again, it's like immediately fake. It's immediately like without seriousness, if you will. And even if he, I think, got fucking dome rocked, I don't think that I'm saying like if that's really the worst case scenario or something, and from then till now, it's like, okay, let's say somehow he gets taken out like Kennedy style, bang, or like Bobby Kennedy. Are states going to really start like pulling out of the union? Is something really going to occur that's different? I don't think so. If he got actually murdered and assassinated, is there going to be some civil war and certain states are going to pull out, or something absolutely revolutionary is going to happen? Or
Some Alex Garland shit happens.
I don't think so, is my point. And so it's like
Yeah.
also, you know, is anything actually radically different going to happen if he does get elected? Maybe these crazy wars that cropped up might go like a little bit dark and get kind of handled, but you know, the thing's just going to flip the other way somehow, or get some other patsy in there that's not, as maybe strong-armed and somewhat independently minded as him. Then it's just going to cycle back to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I don't know. I don't see, especially like, here's a question. Are there a bunch of fucking Trump signs like out in your neighborhood on the lawns and whatnot? Do you notice that stuff? You drive around and whatnot
Yeah,
in
dude.
Bakersfield.
Um, it's pretty mixed. Like, I'll see the occasional like Trump sign. There's like an area not far from my house where a lady sells Trump merch in front of her house.
Yeah.
Uh, there's also like a few people that are for like uh Harris and Waltz, like down the way over by like Oswell. It's it's strange seeing like how diverse my neighborhood is, because
Is it like
if
50-50?
yeah, in some ways it is. In other ways, like I think you have people that are like promoting very specific ideas. Like I can tell like somebody who's conservative versus not by like the stickers they have on their car.
Yeah.
Like there's a guy next door to us who has like the "Don't Tread on Me" sticker and like a few
Yeah.
crosses, and I'm like, yeah, he's
Yeah.
conservative. Like,
Yeah. I think the beginning of that was like, you remember the whole sticker thing, I think way before that, I think if someone was rocking a fucking Confederate flag, or they start calling it the rebel flag now, you could pretty much nail them to the cross and be like, let me guess. But but what took it off was like in 2016, you remember like everybody had a Bernie sticker on. You remember that?
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
what's interesting is there was still the same kind of backing for him that there was for Trump, right? And as soon as he like dropped out or just like shit the bed for whatever reason in 2016, he was like, go for that Hillary chick. Everybody was for Hillary, just like Kamala Harris type shit. And the more that I'm looking at like what's going on now with like this switcheroo, you know what I mean? It's like going back and re-looking at the 2016 one and how that, you know, they did their whole like get together panel and fucking weeded them out, and there was this massive support for Bernie Sanders. And it what's interesting is it felt like the kind of maybe not as definitely not at this point, but it felt like the beginning of MAGA type, remember? But it was like the liberal side. Everybody had a Bernie Sanders sticker, and then he dropped out and then pointed at Hillary, and somehow she was like the runner up, and he just barely beats her out. And then they do this crazy Biden thing, and they're like, let's get the vice president, like the number two, who was the number two to the MVP, Barack Obama, like the shining example, right? And we'll just put him in, like, there's nobody that could outshine that. And then they shove him in now, and they're like, switcheroo, just like with the Hillary Clinton type shit. And so it's like, do you really think that there's, I guess I'm saying I don't really buy all this crazy like switcheroo support for Kamala Harris. Have you noticed like you get texts? I get texts. I get random texts from like numbers that are like, "Hey, take this poll. Do you support Kamala Harris? Or so and so, or hey, make sure to tune in to the like DNC type shit." And I don't know, it's a trip. Like with all this and whatnot, I should start like recording the things that I see and whatnot because it's weird. It's like obviously all of our information's out there in some way, manner, or whatnot. I'm certainly not getting any Republican hate, vote for Trump or whatnot. I might get an occasional ad, but the only ones that like you get those weird text messages from, and they're like, "Hey, come out and support so and so at this thing, or take this poll, and this is the Democratic so and so, and make sure to take our survey or whatever poll." And just like, why are they reaching out? How are they doing that? Why is it more than it's more than one, you know what I mean? You might get like some random survey type thing over the years, but it's like consistently since the switch happened. I don't know. There's other crazy shit where, you know, there's several videos that I know of that I should like actually capture where I'm searching them, and then there's no way they show up. I Google the title verbatim, doesn't show up. I Google the title along with the channel name, doesn't show up. I have to go into the channel, go into their most popular videos, and you're like, what's this obscure video he's looking for? It's only a video that has 11 million fucking views, and it's about Antarctica. It's like, that's interesting stuff. I don't know. See, now I said that I'm gonna have to do like a video before they heard me say that, and they're gonna be like, "Up, scrub it. Make sure it shows up whenever he's searching it now or something," you know. But
Right.
shit's crazy.
They're out to get you.
I just, yeah, it feels that way. I mean, especially with like, I mean, it is that way. I mean, you went through the school thing. I mean, it's not outside of my mind to imagine that that's just everything is just some fungible, weird game that as you adult, you just all adulting means just means that you're easier mentally with like, what's that? I owe thousands of dollars? No problem. That's I'll have to pay that off by the end of the year or something. It's not as if I'm like an indentured servant. You are, or like it just and adulting is just becoming like, well, that's okay. Well, that's just how the system operates. And I got a credit card payment and like I also subscribe to everything, so I own nothing.
Yeah.
It's a motherfucker out here. These waters are rough. I don't know. I don't know. The political shit's crazy, especially since we travel and we see the different states and the whatnot.
Oh.
Anyhow,
Okay, there.
what? Can you hear
Yeah, it
me?
unfroze. Yeah, it was frozen for a moment.
All right, good. We're back.
Okay, we're back.
Are you even
I get what you're
registered to
saying.
vote? I don't even know. I think I am. I think I'm registered in Florida or something, though.
Yeah, yeah, I'm registered to vote, but
I
no
don't know
clue.
now. So that's something I'm gonna have to figure out. But yeah, the struggle's real, and there's so much time between now and then. It's like they just keep missing with the assassinations. They're like, well, we're gonna get them at least before then, right? And then what happens? I don't know. There's some crazy uprising. I don't think there would be. It would be kind of a trip. I'd be really surprised if there was.
I agree
Anyways,
with you.
what?
I agree with you. I don't think there will be.
Yeah, I think we're far too docile now. I don't, but I mean, we spent like a fuck ton of time locked up, and then everybody that was worried was like, let's protest as long as we wear a mask. It's like no worries. And then the protesting stopped, and then the people that were out protesting with masks were
Well,
like the same people that were like, hey, you need to wear a mask if you want to order in here. It's like, weren't you the one with the crazy protest sign out in the middle of hundreds of thousands of people, probably? Anyways, what's up? Are you there? Can you hear me? Did it freeze again?
okay, there you're back. Good.
Yep, it froze. I know, I saw it. That sucks.
Okay, where to now?
Where to now? I don't know. Use the past to project forward into the future better. What would you tell younger if the audience is the younger you going into high school, what would you tell them? And then what would you tell younger you coming out of high school too? So beginning high school and then you just graduated from high school. What are you telling younger you? How to avoid the things, what to be aware of, the good advice.
Jump into what you're about to jump into with the expectancy that you do, but also the humility, because you have a tendency to get drawn up into the world and to forget that you are the driver of that experience, that the things that you pursue that affect you, that move you, either negatively or positively, are under your control, that ultimately you are in control of yourself, that the things that influence you, the things that negatively impact you, are avoidable, that the relationships in your life, the people that you bring in, you can't control, or they can't control you. And if they do, they attempt to. there's there's a wrongness that needs to be corrected in that sense of autonomy and freedom that you have, that you feel that you don't have because of your lack of ability to advocate for yourself, to believe that you are actually worthy to participate in this life of yours, and to not just go along with what I want you to do. You have the basic respect to say, no, I don't want to do that, that you are able to advocate and say, this experience that you're about to go on, you have a say in it, that I have a say in it. All right, you, as much as you believe that the people around you currently are controlling you, that are keeping you in this box of who you are, realize to yourself that it's not them doing that, it's you. You limit yourself. You put yourself in the box. You know that there are certain circumstances that any of you audience members are in that you feel like because of your situation, because of where you're at, you can't control yourself. It's the one thing you can control. You know, how you respond to your adverse circumstances. Like if you had to make rent at the end of the week, it's difficult to do that sometimes in California. If you have a partner maybe that you're like gelling with, or you feel like there's a lot of dissonance, there's going to be times in which you have an intuition of like what the right thing to do is, and that you shouldn't fall asleep to that. You shouldn't you shouldn't let go of the time that you have with the people that you spend the time that you do have with.
And so, how do you distinguish that feeling of, oh, well, I'm just doing this because, it's the college route and that's what everybody else around me is doing and that's what must be right, right? But then there's also this thing that says, this isn't resonating with me. And you're this person, me, you, the being in the middle, and you go, is this over here just me being fucking lazy and giving in to like my ego going, yeah, but you could do it anyways. It's like, why study all the hard fucking math just so you could get a grade that says, you're gonna pass it anyways? Are you even gonna use it? Like, why are you here? This isn't resonating with. But then you should feel like, yeah, but that's me being lazy somehow, and everybody else is doing this. How do you tune into that and not be detracted by what everybody else is doing? How do you recognize that voice for you, for you?
Everybody has their own journey when it comes to finding that voice that lets them know this is the thing that I want to do for my life. And it could be as simple as living a certain way. You know, everybody's idea of like a successful life is different. And I'm starting to realize my idea of a successful life is that, if I'm good to the people around me and they're good to me, that's all I could ever ask for. That voice says to me, and I'm sure it could say to anybody who attributes like a certain amount of success in their life being a certain thing, then if it's that certain thing, if that voice says be good to people, that's all you need to do to live a good life for yourself. That's what I want. I want whatever legacy that I have to be imprinted onto other people, that I've helped or I've made a difference in their life. I'm partially thinking, like what can I do as a calling to make sure that I do that in some way? A lot of teaching, being a therapist, being a social worker. Like those are the things I know I would do well at because I know I can attribute peace to another person's life. by sharing with them what I've learned. That sense of happiness that I get when I write is different than the deep sense of meaning I get when I talk to somebody, I listen to them, and I ask them questions about themselves that lead them to realize themselves in a way they didn't maybe before they talked to me. That's what teaching is to me. It is just asking somebody questions that something about something you know about, but maybe they don't, and revealing that they know more about that thing than they think they do because you're teaching them by asking them questions and making them consider and think.
So what do you feel like, since you were talking about legacy, maybe let's close it out with how you feel like you've resonated the most with the most people. What's something you've done that, or you did? Was it the directing or was it the acting? What do you feel like something you did or something you put out there that had like the most impact or the most influence or inspiration on either even just one person or whatever? Something you're proud of.
Well, to be truthful, I think that the works that I have done uh, pale in comparison to my acts as a person, as a human being. That's why I'm starting to realize that like this legacy of writing that I've been chasing, or like being a good artist, or being having some sort of mastery of something and using that as a reputation for a legacy is like the wrong way to sort of try and cultivate a legacy. Because the legacy is the people that you've influenced and impacted. And I think that the people that I've impacted are the people that I've personally like made a point to try and see and to love properly, because love is doing the most amount of good for another person. That is something that I attempted to do of late, to be truly considerate about the experience of another person. Like, of course, us humans are self preserving beings, and the ultimate act as a human being, in my opinion, is to be conscious of another human being's experience and to try and help them along on whatever journey they're on. I could do that just by being there. I could do that being about them, like,
So instead
considering
of your
how they relate.
creations, then what of your actions are you most proud of? What do you feel like has had the most impact or leaving the best impressions? Is it like just you helping out your brother somehow and just him and that's all that really matters? Or was it you directing and like you feel like there was maybe that one kid who maybe your script had a big impact on or something like that? I mean, what?
Oh, mm,
So, and what have you done? What are you most proud of? What did you do that fed your soul the way you're talking about? Tell the people the things that
um,
resonated so they can hone in on what might resonate for them, like you're saying with helping people.
uh, okay. Well, there was one character that I wrote who struggles with a sense of self worth, and one of my actors who was playing her related to her in a really big way. Like there's this sort of volatile like insecurity that sort of makes you act out and lash out at people. And this character, that was their flaw. She lashed out at people because she felt inferior. People sometimes have to sort of be their own worst enemy in order to feel safe, is by like aggressively antagonizing people around her. And she related to that. She felt like she did that and was sort of ashamed that she did do that. And I revealed to her a nugget of information is that this character is gay. Like they hold a lot in. And when I said that, like she started tearing up a little bit, and I looked at her and I said, "I see you relate," and she just nodded. Yeah, I do. This is a girl who grew up in a Catholic household, so the idea that this character can be truly and accepted and loved for who she is was sort of like a meaningful moment for her, and realizing that I relate a lot to this character, and there's this secret component to them that makes them who they are that I can relate to and understand. So that was meaningful to me, that something that I had wrote had made somebody have a revelation about themselves.
Yeah, that's heavy. That's and so and that's a heavy synchronicity. Yeah. Was that her character on accident or on purpose? Did she volunteer for it? Because that would be the next question. Was it just
She
chance?
auditioned for that role because that's the role she got last time.
Okay, so this was that play that you wrote and then it got canceled. Oh Lord, you're frozen again. Hold on, let me see. Let me see, let me see. It's not it.
Frozen.
Quit. Yep, yep, I know. You said so you frozen 1 sec, let me get it right. There we go. This was when you wrote it and then it got canceled because of COVID and all that. And then, so she got the same role twice. But when she
Yeah,
auditioned for it the first time, was it just her? Was she like, that's definitely me? Or were you like, you? Or like, how was it? How did she get chosen?
I was you because there were like slews of other people that auditioned, but she was the best. And second time, same thing.
Okay. And then, so then the other question would be is when you were like, hey, here's a little secret nugget is that that character is gay. Does that ever come out in the play?
It it doesn't. That's the
So
thing.
you were telling her, you were saying, look, the reason you're resonating with this character, let me tell you something else is I never even told it, but like here's this Easter egg. I wrote this character with this mentality and coming from this perspective. And so that's basically how you wrote that character out.
Like the way that I had thought about it was that there was a reason the father was rejecting her. There was a reason, and I had to come up with that reason. Not only, okay, she's sloppy, okay, she's like maybe like not as skilled as the elder child. What else? Like, what's another deeper sort of reason that she could feel this sense of rejection and then resent the other character for what she has?
And also be like a
And
symbol of rebellion and all of those other
yeah,
things. Yeah, hell yeah. That's crazy. And so it never would have come out in the play and you told that to her and then it resonated like that. It's just
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's some shit. I love it. Those are the good stories that stick with you.
She was really good in that part. And so was the other lead who was playing the eldest daughter, who wrote me a letter saying how much he felt that he was the character as well. Uh, she's also an eldest
Wow,
child
that's cray cray.
and also has like a particular sense of like perfectionism about her that also resonated with her. Uh,
And these are again kids from the charter school that you went to. God dang.
gotcha.
There we go. You're back. And I was saying, and so can you hear me?
Frozen.
Good. Yep. I see you. I see you. You're coming in. Hold still. You're frozen again. Some bitch. There you are. You hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Well, anyways, so that's cool that just how you were saying the things you wrote resonated with those people and they had those experiences too and all those other heavy synchronicities. Yeah, that shit's powerful.
Yeah.
I love it. So then all right, let's maybe top it off with what was the upside down of that? What was like a really hot, tense moment or moment of frustration where you had to be like, I'm older than these beings. I can be the adult. I don't know what tantrum is
So,
occurring right now or whatever this is, or you're about to ruin the play as we're about to start the show. Like what happened? What was the craziest
uh,
other way?
uh, they were surprisingly professional for a good majority of it. Some of them,
Surprisingly professional.
like,
Tight. High
they-
praise.
they're like they have like their hangups, of course. Like some of them are distractible, or they're lions, or hey,
Crazy.
all right, how we doing?
We're gonna give it one more try. Let's pretend like it's working.
Okay, so I'm really grateful to have you as a friend. That I'm able to make these observations about my life in a way that I can actually articulate it in a not only a platform where I'm free to talk as much as I want, but to talk about anything and to explore that with specific questions from you that highlight the important bits. How do you move on? How do you create meaning in your life? Cool, man. Glad to have been a part about this
I love you. I'm
experience.
glad we got to do it again, and I just need to make it a regular thing. And I'm grateful to know so many incredible people like you in my life that something like this could even happen. So stick with
Yeah.
it, just like I need to. So I'll make sure to fast forward through all the BS, and we can get to this part. Much love, dude. Way to close it out.
See you, man. Love you.
Love you. Peace.